Good morning, everyone. I'm Northern Westman, and I'm joined by Lycomedes and John Malt, and you're listening to the Disciple Hour. Gentlemen, would you like to say hi?
Hello,
Hi,
I am Lycomedes.
I am John Malt from the United States.
I'm from Norway.
Oh, yeah, and I'm from Iceland. All right, we're going to pick up where we left. We were talking about anti-Whiteism in the churches. Has there been any change in your churches? Or is it the same?
It's
I
the
am not
same. Yeah,
affiliated with the church, and that's something I've definitely been working to fix. But unfortunately, I'm not a part of a church yet.
the churches I go to tend to be more focused on Christianity. There's not the usual anti-white talking points, but there is some focus on the missionary work. It's always got to be some non-white country, and that seems to be. They seem to regard that as the height of virtue to always do more for the non-white countries. And meanwhile, there are plenty of people who can be reached in our own country.
Yeah, it's the same everywhere in that regard. I mean, you find that here as well. And I'm not part of a church either, but I've been in many churches, attended many gatherings, and yeah, you do see this, the catering to non-whites. Yeah. Missionaries to Africa, typical Africa. Or if there is a guest speaker, if he's from Britain, it's like, oh, okay. But if he's from Africa, then everyone attends. It's like, and this sickness you see in white people because of anti-whiteism. We are so dehumanized that people think that, they believe that non-whites, if they legitimize their ideology, then it is acceptable. And that is a true sickness. You see this in the conservative movement. You know the joke, who is the only non-white speaker at a conservative gathering is the key speaker, right?
The
Keynote
only
speaker.
non-white
Right,
person
yeah.
in the entire room is the keynote speaker.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's because they have been idolized, right? The angelized. You could say they're angelized. Blacks have been angelized, especially in the US, but also around Europe. And white people feel like their opinions are not legitimate unless non-whites legitimize them.
Yeah, yes, and here in the United States, at least, I'm sure it's the same or similar throughout the West. Whenever somebody says the word diversity or diverse, the implication is that that's better. The implication is that diverse is better, and until you are diverse, you're not as legitimate as
That
people
is
who
so
are
true. Yes.
diverse.
The more white
You're
erased.
suboptimal.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yes, the more white
Right.
erased the churches, or really any group in the West, it is considered better. And that is just proof that we live in an anti-white narrative. It's very sad. It's sickening. It's something that has to be talked about. It has to be reverted. I mean, this will destroy the West if it continues. The dehumanization of white people and the angelization of non-whites.
And the word diversity never refers to the diversity among the European cultures. It always means a non-white, white erased.
precisely. Yeah, white erasure.
And
That's it.
part of the reason I don't have a church is, I mean, in this day and age, a lot of churches post their sermons on Facebook or YouTube, and you could easily lurk and listen in. And there is nary a sermon that goes by where they don't have this undertone that we're talking about, this diversity and welcoming the strangers, and by strangers they mean the invaders who call themselves refugees. They mean they mean people who aren't white. There's always this strong hints and implications that you're not doing enough for the strangers, or you're not accepting enough of the non-whites, or we're too white here and we need more non-white. It's almost a given or a constant through every sermon. There will be some reference to race.
Yeah, and they, especially in the churches that I've attended, the pastors, they claim that they don't see race, that they don't care about race, but then they go on and on about pandering to non-whites, and it's just, it's so sickening. I can't stand it. Do they not realize, or are they just so cowardly and so full of white guilt? It's difficult to identify it sometimes.
Yeah, they make these comments in the presence of children, young children, who can easily pick up on the attitudes here. They understand I'm white and that's deficient, that's substandard. I hear these sermons either on Facebook or YouTube or wherever they're posted, and I think to myself, what is there even a point for me giving this church a chance? I'm not going to like it there. I'm going to have disagreements. Why even bother? Why even try? Because I've looked in and seen what they're like, and I know that I'm not going to agree with the pastor. So rather than join and cause a ruckus, I choose to just stay away, and that's a real problem. I mean, I know there are people out there that don't like their church because of this anti-whiteism. They're really sick of being guilted, being white guilted, but they don't know if it's better to leave church altogether and and worship on their own and divide or break up the body of Christ, or do they simply tolerate it week after week, let their children hear it week after week? They honestly don't know which is the correct course of action.
In European countries, usually the state churches are the most anti-white, the most in line with the anti-white regime, and then there are some independent churches. At least some of them are better, not as anti-white, more focused on actual Christianity. And I find Orthodox churches can be good, and also some non-denominational churches.
Yeah, I do concur with that. In Iceland, the state church is vehemently degenerate and anti-white. It's gross. Did I not tell you about the advertisement that they made a few years ago, where they depicted Jesus? This is so blasphemous that they depicted him with breasts, and he had makeup, and there was this giant rainbow flag in the background. This was like a children's cartoon, like you would see in a children's book. And then there were, it was white erased, the white kids in the minority, if I remember correctly. And then there was this girl with a hijab, a Muslim girl inside the church, like looking outside the window. It was just...
If they did this to Muhammad, there would be riots.
There would be assassinations. Yeah, riots, assassinations, total purge. I mean,
but they know that Christians are peaceful and tolerant, so they feel free to mock them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's and in the past month, both the Church of England and the Church of Germany have agreed to, and I don't know what this means, quote, bless homosexual marriages.
Ugh.
I don't know what that means. They aren't performing the marriages, but a homosexual couple who has been married by the state, they will bless that union. And I don't know what that means, but I'm sure it's some kind of endorsement. And that means it could only be a matter of time before they start performing those marriages.
Yeah, it's time for Christians to be less tolerant of this subversion of the faith, this blasphemy that passes for Christianity.
That is exactly correct. And you hit the nail on the head regarding the subversion. So these people who have infiltrated the churches and subverted Christians, they used clever pretexts. For example, everyone must have heard about the slogan "Love is love," right?
Yeah.
It is dressed as tolerant. It is dressed as innocent. But as we have seen now in the last few years, this has been a total pretext. You see these creepy perverts and pedophiles dressing up in drag, and they, go to libraries and read for children. The drag queen story hour. That's just the tip of the iceberg, and they managed to subvert Christianity because they gained a false moral high ground. And Christians need to realize that this is a false moral high ground. They do not have a moral high ground. They are evil. They want to rape children. They hate Christianity. They hate Christ. They want to live in sin. They don't care about the scripture. They will rewrite the Bible just as they are anti-whites have started to use artificial intelligence to rewrite certain books to make it they use a pretext to make it what did they say, more modern, no, less intolerant. Can't remember the exact pretext, but they will use the similar pretext to rewrite the Bible to make it more open or inclusive, probably inclusive. That's another meme pathogen.
Yeah, if you tolerate evil and include evil, then you are evil.
Well said. Yes. So let's give listeners a remedy for the meme pathogen. Love is love. What is our remedy? I think the response should be sodomy is sodomy, or something similar to that. And for anybody who claims that the church is accepting or tolerant of male to female sodomy and not just male to male, I've heard it said from Orthodox priests that the church considers that even worse. The church considers male to female sodomy even worse than male to male. So when they try to corner you with that is probably what you should say.
Yeah, it's a false pretext that all forms of love are equal. It's there are good kinds and there are dysfunctional and sinful actions that have been dressed up with this a nice word.
Yes, and let me tie in anti-whiteism to this seemingly distinct issue of tolerating degeneracy, sexual degeneracy. This is all a subset of anti-whiteism, and we know that because the African churches, who have no tolerance for anything homosexual, they are allowed to continue as they are. They are allowed to continue rejecting, as they rightly should, homosexuality, whereas any white church will be cracked down on instantly if they don't tolerate homosexuality. They'll be disowned or not disbarred. That's what happens to a lawyer when they lose their license. But what the equivalent word for church is they'll be kicked out of the church if they don't tolerate homosexuality and endorse it, whereas the African churches are allowed to remain as they are.
Now that is interesting. And what does that tell us?
That tells us that the true issue is anti-whiteism. The true problem, the core root of all this evil and wickedness is anti-whiteism, because when Africans do it, it's fine. When whites do it, they're gone.
And there is another thing. Non-whites, they are a people. Can you mute yourselves, please? There's like an echo. Non-whites, they are a people. They see themselves as a people, and so they will defend themselves on that basis. White people are deracinated. They do not see themselves as a people. I mean, especially in America, sadly, this meme pathogen that America was a melting pot from the beginning is just a total lie. First of all, it was always intended to be a white nation. Just look up the initial Bill of Rights, the first Congress of the US. It stated that America should welcome free white men of good character. So it was never intended to be a melting pot.
Free white persons of good character, I think that was the exact wording.
Yes.
It was the first Immigration Act, I think it was, of 1791.
Yeah. And and then there was the Hart-Celler Act in 1965, which opened the border to non-whites. And ever since, white Americans have just been losing their identity. And many of them are just coping at this point that anyone can become American. You become conservative, blah, blah, blah. Just read the Bible, love your guns, freedom, liberty. These are all abstractions, and you cannot. You don't have a people. That's not a peoplehood. I mean, that this is a cattle mentality. You're just a livestock. America has just been made into a giant mall from coast to coast. So white people do not have a peoplehood. They do not. They will never defend themselves.
And this is the difference between a country and a nation. And a nation, the word native implies blood. It implies brotherhood, kinship, whereas country is simply the land. It's just the dirt underneath your feet.
Then there's the idea that the United States is stolen land, that white people do not have the right to it. But at the same time, the non-whites arriving in Europe by the boatloads are said to have a right to inherit Europe. So the arguments are always just anti-white, and they shift ground as needed.
Well, yes. If you ask them, white people didn't just fall out of the sky. They originated somewhere. They must have a homeland somewhere. Where do you think it is? And then they won't answer, or they'll say it doesn't matter, or something like that. They'll take any form of argumentation, no matter how contradictory, as long as the conclusion is bad for white people.
Yeah. They don't want us to have a homeland. That's it. That's the thing.
They also don't want us to have any kind of identity, only a negative identity, and that is the same thing as denying a white people the very right to exist as a people.
Let me before I forget, I wanted to mention something about missions to it's invariably Africa. Sometimes it's South America. Every now and then it's India, but usually it's missions to Africa. I looked up some statistics, and I don't think many missions are to Congo. They're usually to either Kenya or Ethiopia, somewhere in East Africa. But I came across a stat that the Congo is about 95% Christian, and it is arguably the most violent place in the world. It leads the rankings every year in most sexual assaults, most rapes. There's a ton of violent crime. There's things like beheadings. There's cannibalism, warlords all over the place. It's arguably the most violent place on earth in just about every metric. And if you look in Wikipedia, it is 94.9% Christian.
So should we regard these people as Christians, real Christians, or are they just nominally Christian?
These are Christians in name. This is a Christian country in name, and that in no way resembles any Western Christian country in any way. So they may call themselves Christian. They may, I don't know, keep the Sabbath or something, but in no other way do they even resemble a Western Christian country. Now, like I said, I don't see or hear of a lot of mission trips to the Congo, but I do see and hear of a lot of mission trips to, like I said, Kenya, Ethiopia, countries on the other side of Africa. And if you look up the stats on Kenya, it itself is about 85% Christian. And not only that, if you want it in real numbers, its population is 54 million, 85% Christian, so that's about 48 million Christians, I think it was, or maybe it was 46 million. And all they have to do is convert or evangelize to the remaining 15%. Now, it's not a big country. I don't know if it's the size of Texas, but I mean, it's a much smaller country than, say, Canada or the United States. This is a relatively small country that is 85% Christian, but for some reason we think they cannot evangelize the remaining 15%. So we send missionaries there year after year, supposedly to spread the gospel to people who have no access to it. And I can't imagine what these people are thinking. With why can't 85% in a small country, their own language, their own culture, their own people, their own biospirit, why do we think they can't evangelize to and bring the gospel to the remaining 15%? How helpless do we think they are?
That goes back to the white guilt. These white people believe that the most moral thing they can do is to help non-white countries, and they gain a kind of status by.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to the ulterior motives, what I think are ulterior motives, but let me compare with the United States. The United States has 330 million people, roughly, and it's only 2/3 Christian, 67%. So that leaves at least 100 million non-Christians right here in the United States, and we opt to send missionaries to Kenya, which is more Christian than us on paper, at least, both in percentage and in absolute numbers. We opt to send missionaries there to bring the gospel to them, and we pass up our own people. And while we're over there, they usually the missionaries usually adopt a child or two and bring them home. Maybe they think the Kenyans can't adopt their own orphans either. They must think they're extremely helpless. This is what we're doing. And I know these people can't be thinking along the same lines as myself. They can't be looking at the statistics like I have, because if they did, they'd say, what in the world are we doing? Why in the world are we going to a small country that's 85% Christian already? Why do we think they can't evangelize to the remaining 15% in a small country of their own people, same language, same culture, same ways? Why do we think we have to step in and intervene and adopt their children? Why can't they adopt their own children, etc.? But I do believe there are, as you said, like Comedies, ulterior motives. Either the status of, look at me, I mission in Africa. Maybe they want to put it on their college resume, their college application essay. Maybe it's just general status points in their church. Maybe it's they think that they need to go to the most dangerous places in the world in order for God to be happy with them. Maybe they think that if they mission in a white country, it doesn't count. If it's white, it doesn't count. If it's safe, it doesn't count. But there have to be some ulterior motives, because if they look at the numbers, the statistics, the percentages, like I just explained, nobody would ever rationally conclude that they need to go to Kenya or some of these other countries that are, on paper, more Christian than us.
You're right. There is an alternative motive. This is a form of villainy signaling. They know that they're going to get more praise if they go to Africa than, say, to, I don't know, Romania in Eastern Europe, or the Faroe Islands or something. I mean, how many people know where that place is? They won't get any credits, right? And so this is a form of self-aggrandizement. They don't go to universities in the US. I mean, they know that they'll just get the best case, they'll just be laughed at. Worst case, Antifa or just anti-white terror troops who call themselves Antifa will show up and beat them. But that won't happen. Usually won't happen in Kenya. Might happen in Haiti. You might be kidnapped. Didn't that happen to some Mennonites a few years ago? They went with women and children.
Oh yeah, that's that. I don't want to get started on that. In late 2021, I think it was November 2021, there were some Mennonites that went to Haiti to evangelize. And now these were, I don't think they were children, but they definitely sent a lot of women. And they were kidnapped for 2 months. These are middle-aged women, young women, even some older women, and some men. There were a few dozen at least altogether in their party, and they were kidnapped for 2 months by some Kenyan or Haitian kidnappers who held them for millions of dollars in ransom. And the only reason they escaped is because they escaped. They snuck out one evening and eluded everybody and got to safety, flew back to Florida. But they were, I mean, these are women in the middle of the jungle of Haiti, held captive. I mean, they're completely dependent on their captors for everything, for food. They have their menstrual cycle, and what do they have supplies? What do they do on their menstrual cycle? I mean, it's really a horrific, harrowing experience, and they all considered it worth it. They all considered the trip worth it to spread the gospel And I mean, this is suicidal. I mean, it's a real sickness that they have, to think that they need to risk their lives. Women need to risk their lives in these wretched, horrific places, because they think that's what they need to do.
Yeah, it's worse than suicidal when families with young children go to these horrible countries to do missionary work, and they really put their children's lives at risk for this dubious. If these people may be officially 85 or 95% Christian, but it's clear that they don't understand or don't accept a true Christianity. And what makes the missionaries think they ever will?
Well, yes, these kinds of missions have been going on for many decades. Since the early 1900s, I think there have been missions to Africa and South America and places like that. And while on paper they may be 90% Christian, like I said, they do not behave or resemble anything that we think of as Christian. Why do we think we could do any better? Maybe this is just the way they are. Maybe conclude that this is just the way they are. And like I said, I mean, you can't be two places at once. When you're missioning in Africa, you're forsaking your own people. And while the United States might not be materially poor, we are absolutely poor in a spiritual sense. We have people strung out on opioids and other kinds of drugs. We have women who are selling their dignity on OnlyFans. And for anyone who doesn't know, OnlyFans is a website for camera girls to make videos of themselves naked and doing all sorts of explicit things and selling that. It's like YouTube for prostitutes, more or less. We have some really spiritually sick people in our own country, and we forsake them routinely to go to places like sub-Saharan Africa, who don't have those kinds of problems, are not our people, and people have already tried to convert them before. But it's like we ignore all that and just keep going again and again and again and again and again, and have very little to show for it.
And it's quite ridiculous that people who would not share the gospel with their neighbors, people in the same street, they would rather go halfway around the world to spread the gospel.
And that goes for the Africans also. I mean, if in a country that's 85% Christian, surely your neighbors are Christian. Aren't they going to share the gospel with their neighbors? Do we have to come in and do it? It's completely absurd from a lot of different angles.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe 15% of Kenya just isn't interested in Christianity. I don't know. But it's a good point you made, like comedies about spreading the faith, in your area. Christ said that you should not be ashamed of him, meaning, if you're ashamed of telling people that you're a Christian, that's a bad thing. Then you need to reconsider your faith. But I know that there is a lot of prejudice against Christianity in the West today. So if you're, afraid of, knocking on your neighbor's door and sharing the gospel, then at least you could go and sticker your area, I don't know, with some cool slogan, Christ loves you, sodomy is sodomy, whatever. And, leafletting, putting some message in people's post boxes, etc. That is something that every Christian should do. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I'll let Lycomedies comment here in a minute, but yeah, I do. I absolutely do. This is the rub. We are called to love our neighbors as ourselves, spread the gospel to our neighbors, but then there's the Great Commission, where Jesus said, "Go and make disciples of all nations," and that I hear more of that from these sermons that I hear on YouTube and elsewhere. I hear more of that than neighbor. I hear more go to other countries and other peoples than your own neighbor. And I just listened to a sermon a few days ago. I wish I could remember the name of the preacher. It was on the Great Commission, and he spent 20 minutes talking about how Christ said, "Make disciples of all nations." Emphasis on the word disciples. A disciple is somebody who, according to that preacher, and I don't disagree with him, a disciple is somebody who fully walks with Christ and leads a Christian life. So in other words, when you go to these countries to make them disciples, you are not just to read them the gospel. You are not just to baptize them or get them to accept Christ. You have to make them full disciples. And until they're Christian and throughout their lives in every way, your job is not complete. So this isn't just try your best. This is you go there and make them full disciples, and until that, your job isn't finished. And if we have to wait until they're full disciples, all of them, before our job is done, we are never going to reach our own people. We will never get around to our own people. So there's love your neighbor versus make ye disciples of all countries, of all nations. And that is kind of a rub. That's kind of a problem that I'm noticing.
Yeah. It is important to make disciples. I view myself as a disciple. My friend baptized me, and I became his disciple. And I'm not sure if I'm ready to start making disciples of my own. But an outreach like this is also sort of disciple making. If people do listen to our arguments, if we start teaching about the faith, then surely this is making disciples. But are you disciples, or are you making disciples?
I probably can't say that I'm making many disciples. I do consider myself one, but I can't really say I'm making many at the moment because I'm not a part of a church, and I'm not doing regular outreach on, say, Sunday or anything like that. Podcasts like this are things that I'm doing. Not exactly making disciples, but it's something. But no, I can't really say I'm making disciples at this point.
Yeah, not quite to that point, but I try to make arguments for Christianity and dispel the common misconceptions about the faith that may be preventing people from coming to faith.
Yeah, that is very important, especially because of the relentless attacks on Christianity. And well, would you like to discuss that? The many meme pathogens, the ridiculous and blasphemous ideas that undermine and subvert Christianity. I have a document here with some universal meme pathogens. Think about this meme pathogen here. God is a psychological crutch. What do you think about that one?
God
No,
is
and
the creator of all things.
Amen.
before I was a believer, I would say things like that. So I have to own up to that.
Yeah, sadly, me too. But a good
No, but if you're asking for just a retort to that, a curative, a meme curative to that, I would say probably something like it takes a lot more faith to believe the opposite than to believe in God. It takes a lot more wild imagination to believe in mass evolution or things like that than to believe in God.
That's actually a brilliant response. I wrote something here, an MC. Can you make your disdain of our faith any more obvious? But another one is God is our fulfillment. I quite like that because there seems to be something about man that makes him depressed without religion, and especially without Jesus. So God is our fulfillment. But I would like to discuss meme pathogens um, more broadly. When we talk about meme pathogens, that means a meme. It comes from the word mimic and gene. So it's any idea, value, behavior, etc., that replicates through society, like genes. And a pathogen is something that spreads disease. So you can view it as ideas, behavior, values, etc., that replicate throughout society. People mimic them without realizing it. It targets your subconscious mind, and then it weakens you. For example, this meme pathogen, God is a psychological crutch. It is often not spoken out directly. It's not stated, it's not spelled out, but you will see it, for example, in films, TV shows, etc. Christian people are either displayed as pathetic losers who rely on God because, well, their lives are so miserable that they need an imaginary friend to make them feel better, or they are displayed as insane, crazy, stupid, dumb. Well, of course, that idiot fell for the Christian spell. Or they are displayed as evil, just wicked. And this stuff, these meme pathogens, they sink into people's subconscious minds without them even realizing it. That's how dangerous the subconscious mind can be. It can be used against you as a weapon. And anything that enters your mind, into your subconscious mind, cannot be removed. It can only be trumped. And so when you encounter a meme pathogen like this, God is a psychological crutch, you might consciously disagree with it, but your subconscious mind, and get this, folks, your subconscious mind cannot differentiate between reality and fiction. So when you see the pathetic loser Christian idiot on TV, your subconscious mind thinks it's real. And so you have to inoculate against this. You have to have a meme curative that will spontaneously come up to your mind to counter the poison. And so God is our fulfillment, etc. Anything, it has to be a countervailing statement against the meme pathogen. So any thoughts about that, guys?
Yeah, hopefully we can get a countervailing image or television show, or something equivalent to the harm. I mean, if the harm was done through a TV show, hopefully the remedy can come through another TV show or another movie, something like that. but I don't think we're wise to wait on that. I think we'll die before that happens. So yeah, we're going to have to go with the next best thing: statements, sayings, and rhetoric.
Yes. Yes, you're right. We
And
we
I
cannot. Oh, sorry.
this is probably, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but this is probably a good time to bring up the very popular Christian Netflix series called The Chosen. That is, I think it's in its third or fourth season right now. It's a Christian, it's a Netflix series based on the life of Jesus. It's called The Chosen. It's very popular. And I've seen an episode or two, and it's got the usual anti-white meme pathogens in them. Everybody in the series that is a disciple, or one of the good guys, is brown. Brown as in either Indian. A few of the disciples are from India. The actor that plays Matthew is from India. I think John is from India. I mean, they're definitely brown people. And all the whites are the bad guys, like the Roman guards and things like that, the Pharisees. It appears to be an oasis in the desert, but when you look closer, it's got a lot of the similar meme pathogens that you see in any other Hollywood show. Judas, the worst traitor in history, has blue eyes. They made sure they cast the blue-eyed actor for the part of Judas. So he's a brown man that happens to have blue eyes, and they thought he would be perfect to play Judas. So it's I just wanted to address that before for anybody who's thinking of The Chosen. Somebody might think, well, The Chosen's out there. That has to be a good Christian TV show, right? In my opinion, it's not. I've seen enough to know that I've seen enough to see that it has the usual anti-whiteism. Maybe not to as large a degree, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, very good point. I have not seen it, and I'm not going to watch it because I know, based on what I said before, that anything that enters your mind cannot be removed. And so I've heard enough. I've seen enough. I've seen the trailer based on what you've told me. The bad guys, the villains are white, and the only white people in the show are villains. And that actually, can you see the similarities here? Have you heard that anti-whites are now saying that all white people are the anti-white slur racist, and only white people can be racist? See how it rhymes here? All white people are villains, and only the villains are white. So this show, Chosen, is really anti-white to the core, sadly. The anti-white narrative is just pervasive here. And it's really sickening. People, they don't see it. They watch it unaware of this. And what is most frightening is that little children, white children, and non-white children too, will see this and they'll think, oh, the white people crucified Jesus. The white people betrayed Jesus. The white people tried to suppress and destroy Christianity. Like I said, your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between reality and fiction. It cannot. And so anyone who watches this, it will sink into their subconscious mind whether they want it or not. They will see white people as evil who betrayed and crucified Jesus and tried to destroy Christianity. So
yeah,
that's my tangent here.
It's better for people to not watch this filth in the first place. But for those who have, what do we tell them? How do How do we cure them? There are sayings like Hollywood isn't history, things like that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one, and there's also the anti-white narrative. These shows are made by anti-whites who are perfectly aware of what they are doing. Nothing is an accident when it comes to casting and the messages they send. So we could talk about what exactly motivates these anti-whites.
Yeah, nothing is an accident. I'm sure the director had to look very long and hard for a blue-eyed brown man to play Judas. I mean, that's not something you find every day. A brown man with blue eyes. They definitely cherry-picked him for Judas.
Yeah, it's just too obvious. I mean, they have Indians. I mean, Indians from the Indian subcontinent. Indians in the Middle East. They were not there, folks. So they went out of their way, sorry. Well, they're out of their mind too. They went out of their way to cast Indians in Israel 2,000 years ago, but they made sure to cast Judas as blue-eyed. That is obviously motivated by anti-whiteism. Like, you have to be an idiot to deny that. It's so obvious at this point, you can't deny it.
And once you see this, you see how pervasive it is in almost every movie from Hollywood, every Netflix show. You will find that the bad guys are they are white, usually blue-eyed, blonde, and they often have a German or Russian accent, and it's all part of the anti-white narrative they are spinning. And they are really motivated by hatred for either an outgroup or hatred for their own.
Yes, precisely. We've talked about how meme pathogens subvert Christians and our faith, and how they must be treated. You must inoculate yourself against the poison. And especially, you have to inoculate your children against this. Whenever you see this filth, these meme pathogens, you have to come up with a countervailing statement that knocks out the meme pathogen.
Yeah, I agree. Either don't let your children watch it in the first place, or if they do imbibe it, make sure you talk to them about it.
Yes. All right then.
It's been a pleasure, everyone.
Yeah, you too.
I want to say for the record, thank you both for speaking English, because I always feel bad that I always get to speak my native language.
Yeah, it takes practice. So thanks for the discussion, and take care.
Take care, everyone, and God bless you all.
Bye.
Goodbye.